I went through a metal phase actually
You did?
years ago. I've talked a little bit about this. I went
Name
through
the
a phase.
band.
Well, I was really a guy that I kind of dated that we became friends. It was tragic. Was really into Pantera.
Yes.
And so he got me into Pantera, and their Mouthful War was like major for me.
It's a great album.
Yeah, like that was.
It's unfortunate that the singer lost it. And
Vulgar display of power. What happened to the?
he said some really racist stuff.
Yeah,
at
that happens.
At a dime bag, he did the
He did a
Hitler
Sue
thing,
Kyle
and
thing.
then screamed white power at everybody. And as a person that listened to Pantera from the start, that really helped me through a lot of problems in my life. I'm like, you just took my heart and threw it on the ground. What do you?
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I wrote him off.
It's really interesting. I was just watching an interview with Jessie Norman, the opera singer, who's one of my idols, and she was talking about, and she was in Israel, and they were asking her about having, she was a Wagnerian soprano, and so Wagner is famously very anti-Semitic, and they were asking her about that, and she was like, well, his music was after he died, people sort of used his music for a lot of things that maybe he didn't intend. And he wasn't a perfect person, but that shouldn't necessarily invalidate the work, the art. And that's the difficult concept for people to maybe handle. I think we live in a day and age where when people might say something racist or really disturbing, and we want to just completely write them off and write off everything about them. And I think that the culture that sort of polices language and discards people, I'm skeptical of that, and it disturbs me.
That is interesting because I feel like I overreact to things like that. I've always been touchy on that, which means it's more my problem than it is their problem.
But I mean, I think it's important to call out.
He got called out.
These systems that, particularly white supremacy is deadly, or what Bell Hooks, my feminist idol, calls imperialist white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. These sort of intersecting systems that affect people's lives in horrible ways need to be called out. But individuals, I think, need to be loved, even when they are say disturbing things and are problematic. I can love the person and not the politics.
How would you suggest that we rehabilitate people and their images in the public sphere? Because it seems like internet shaming and social media shaming is a very crude, blunt object. When somebody does something that we all hate, we hate that person forever. And a lot of times their career is ruined forever. Let's just take this example. Let's say the guy's really a little racist and he really did get drunk and go, "What power?" on stage. That's awful, but he probably isn't a modern Hitler.
There's there's an empathetic story probably behind that.
What do we do to get that guy back in the good graces of the world? What is the way that he should say, "Look, man, I fucked up. I'm trying to change." And we all go, "Okay, good. That's all we needed from you. Now we can all listen to Pantera again."
Well, I don't think saying that I'm trying to change is enough. Mm-hmm. I think for what was his name? The
Phil.
For Phil, perhaps. Doing work to understand the history of white supremacy and beginning to have conversations with people of different races and different backgrounds and doing that in a public way where we begin to understand that he was taking efforts to really do the rehabilitation and do the work. Because I think white supremacy is something that we all internalize. As a Black woman in America, I've internalized white supremacist ideas about beauty, political, whatever. We all live in the same culture. And my work was to decolonize my mind, as Bell Hooks would say, and other thinkers would say. The work to decolonize one's mind is around coming to critical consciousness around these issues. Critically interrogating everything we thought we knew about the world and coming into a new space. It's almost a rebirth. And so that if he wanted to sort of be rehabilitated in the public sphere, I would need evidence that he has had a critical consciousness raising this that wasn't just about him losing his sort of standing with the public, but him realizing that how deeply problematic white supremacy is, and then taking the steps to come to consciousness and to decolonize his mind and sharing that, and not in a way that's patronizing, not in a way that's imperialist. It's really tricky. It would be really tricky with white supremacy. I think a few friends of someone I know who said something, potentially racially problematic on Twitter years ago, became more racially aware and began to center the lives and experiences of people of color in their public work. And I think that would be a way to go, not in a patronizing way, but in a way of like, you know what, for the people who I'm a white person. I've internalized all this stuff. I'm beginning to understand how this privilege works. I'm beginning to understand how this systemic racism works. And now I want to prioritize and focus on the stories and the lives of people of color.
And I hope he's listening, because that is, if he did do that, that would change my decision of him.